Ryan Blaney breaks a 59 race winless streak and tempers flair after a long weekend in Charlotte. Let's talk about this year's Coca-Cola 600. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host, Alex Lambert, and let's talk about NASCAR at Charlotte. 400 laps, 600 miles around the Charlotte Motor Speedway, and at the end of the day, it was Ryan Blaney capturing the checkered flag. We had a couple of tempers flaring. We had one big wreck at the end of the race that really changed things, and we'll get into all of it. But first off, we've got to talk about Ryan Blaney breaking the long winless streak. It's been 59 races since Ryan Blaney has won a race dating back to August 2021 at Daytona. That was his last win, and I believe that was like his third win in 2021, and then went last year without a win. Finally back to victory lane this year. Showed a lot of speed. I think he was really high up in the point standings last year. Missed the playoffs due to the way the point standings are, and then this year has obviously showed a lot of speed early on in the season. So congrats to Ryan Blaney, and congrats to Roger Penske as well. Won the Indianapolis 500 yesterday on Sunday, and then came here today into Charlotte and won the Coke 600 at Charlotte. So a big weekend for Roger Penske as well. Congratulations to him. But I want to talk about Ryan Blaney for just a minute, because I think Ryan Blaney, well, I don't think I would consider him a championship driver at the moment. I don't think I would say he's the favorite whatsoever to win this championship. He's been one of the more consistent drivers, and I think it was Kyle Petty maybe it was over a month ago now, said that he feels like Ryan Blaney has a lot of unreached potential. Feels like he's got a lot of races that he can win that he hasn't yet. This was his 8th career win. He's 29 years old, still a long time to go. But I think Ryan Blaney, if he can just get over that hump that he's been in over the last year and a half or so, I think Ryan Blaney can have a breakout season this year and reach that 2 to 3 win season again, maybe even more. And we have to continue to watch that. I think Ryan Blaney's a really good driver. I think he's an experienced driver now, been in the Cup Series for a long time now, and today got his 8th career win. So congrats to Ryan Blaney. I think he could be a real threat to win a lot more races. Like I said, I wouldn't consider him a championship threat right now, just based off of what I've seen so far this year, right now at the moment, but that could change, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him excel into that, championship favorite category at some point. But right now, I don't think he's quite reached that level. William Byron was in second place for a majority of the day. William Byron his pit crew was on fire. He got him out. The pit crew got him out in front of Ryan Blaney multiple times today. Ryan Blaney was able to excel past him on the racetrack. William Byron raced him really clean in second for a majority of the day, so William Byron just unable to catch him. One of the big moments of the race was right here. Kyle Larson was, I think he was like 17th, 18th for a majority of the race, was able to somehow find some speed. I saw where they were raising the hood on that car, making adjustments. He was somehow able to find some speed, get up through the field, and get up into the top 5, and then on the second to last restart, he gets loose. Kyle Larson wrecks, unfortunately. That's 2 years in a row Kyle Larson's been in winning contention for the Coke 600 and ended up involved in an accident. So really unfortunate there for Kyle Larson. Also, you see Ty Gibbs get caught up in this. Ty Gibbs having what I say is a very impressive rookie season in the 54 car, was having an impressive run today, was in the top 10 all day long, and then, of course, obviously was in the top 10 when he got caught up in that wreck. Just wanted to shout out Ty Gibbs there. So that was kind of one of the big changing points of the race. That obviously took a couple of guys out, took Ty Gibbs out the top, took Kyle Larson out for the win. It kind of shuffled Kyle Busch back a little bit. So definitely that was a really turning point for the race for sure. But then after that, it looked like Ryan Blaney was the fastest car out of those top cars, and Ryan Blaney was able to go on and win the race. So a few other things to talk about. Obviously, I want to talk about the tempers flaring, because we had a lot of those today. I saw Kyle Busch obviously upset, or Ricky Stenhouse and Kyle Busch going at it at the very end of the race. Don't know if they were mad at each other or just racing really hard, but I don't really want to focus on that. I want to focus more on the Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott situation, because I think that's going to be the big one. You can take a look at the replay here. Chase Elliott gets run up the racetrack into the wall. He slams the wall and immediately turns that wheel back down into Denny Hamlin, right hooks him, and goes into the wall. Denny Hamlin, big crash there, scary wreck there. Glad everybody was okay. But I think we've already established this. And I think, at first, when I first looked at the replay, I was thinking, oh, Chase Elliott didn't do that on purpose. Chase Elliott's not that type of person to do that on purpose. He wouldn't do that. But when you rewatch the replay from the aerial view, which I couldn't find, you see that Keselowski never touches him on the rear of the car, so he turns all to himself. And actually, I think we saw some SMT data, and I'm not too familiar with how SMT data works. I don't know if the car brakes, if it reads data differently or not. but it shows that he did turn the wheel down into Denny Hamlin and right rear hooked him. So definitely disappointing to see that from Chase Elliott. I don't know if we'll see a suspension like we saw last year in the Bubba Wallace incident, but definitely want to watch out for potentially some sort of penalty maybe coming from Chase Elliott there in the 9 car. And Chase Elliott, by the way, just quickly talking about him, got caught up in that wreck, got 3 points on the day, which is really disappointing when the Coke 600 is a big points opportunity. Got 3 points today. He's trying to point his way in the playoffs. You got to remember, he's 30 or something in points right now. If he doesn't get a win, he's not going to make the playoffs this season. I don't think he can crawl back now. Potentially going to miss next week. That's in the that's a serious point of conversation. Is will he get suspended? We got to keep an eye on Chase Elliott. Not having the best start to this year right now. He's had a lot of speed, been running good, but definitely not getting a lot of points that he needs. Denny Hamlin was very upset, obviously, after this incident, saying that he needs to get parked. Hamlin very upset following the race. During the rain delay, we also had a couple other tempers. Here's on Twitter, and I'll tag the Twitter handle in as well, of Eric Almirola and Bubba Wallace having a discussion during the rain delay, right when they got out of their car. I don't know what Bubba Wallace said to Eric Almirola to get him so heated, but Eric Almirola shoves him. Eric Almirola is not that type of guy at all. Eric Almirola is probably one of the most respected drivers in the garage area, very calm guy in most situations, so I'm not sure what Bubba Wallace did there to kind of set him off, and I'm not sure what happened to Bubba Wallace on track for him to be upset with Almirola. Apparently he flipped him off, and then they got to cussing and arguing on pit road, so definitely have to watch those two moving forward. Don't think it'll go much farther than that, but we'll have to keep an eye on that and see what happens with that moving on in the future. So I talked about the tempers flaring. I talked about obviously Ryan Blaney breaking that winless streak. Let's go through the entire top 10 here following 600 miles at Charlotte. It was a long day for the pit crew, a long day for the entire crew and the drivers for sure. Like I said, we did have that brief rain delay, but it was a long day nonetheless. Ryan Blaney obviously was your winner. William Byron, I talked about him, was in second. Really fast race car. William Byron, shout out to their pit crew, was on top of it all day long, got him out of pit road in first multiple times. And I know they had the number 1 pit stop, but they were still super fast. Some of the fastest pit stops all day long. Martin Truex Jr. was in the mid-pack for a majority of the race, was able to come up at the end and get a third-place finish. Once again, I talked yesterday in my video about how the sun wouldn't set and it wouldn't be that big of changing track temperatures. I was completely wrong. The cloud cover, the sun coming out, the sun setting at the very end after the rain delay, it really, you could see some cars come alive and some cars fade as the track temperatures changes. So I was completely wrong. We saw it a ton in this race today, and you saw Martin Truex Jr. come alive at the end. Also another Toyota right behind him, Bubba Wallace, who wasn't in the top. He was laps down at one point. Wallace was able to come back up and get a 4th place finish. And Bubba Wallace, once again, we'll take a look at those points, is on the cut line trying to make the playoffs. So another solid run there for Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace is on a bit of a stretch right now. Not, the fastest car, not winning right now, but has been in the top 10 very consistently here over the last few weeks, over the last month. Tyler Reddick, another Toyota that came up through the field. Now, Reddick was really fast all day long in that UNC blue car, number 45 for Michael Jordan. I thought it was a really cool paint scheme. He was really fast all day long, led a lot of laps early, faded a little bit as Ryan Blaney, William Byron kind of came to life, but Tyler Reddick had a solid top 5 run today nonetheless. 5th place finish for Tyler Reddick. Kyle Busch obviously battling Ricky Stenhouse Jr. very aggressively at the end. Kyle Busch able to salvage a solid 6th place finish. So definitely still, you see the speed from Kyle Busch at the 1.5-mile tracks, at the intermediate type tracks. Just once again, another one of those drivers that needs to get over that hump to win a little bit more. And obviously 6th place isn't terrible for Kyle Busch, but he wants to get back to victory lane. So just got to find a little bit more speed on these racetracks, and he could be in the victory lane. He's on the verge, I think, if you see what Kyle Busch is doing. Like I said, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. having a good run. Had a few good runs the last few weeks. He won the Daytona 500 this year. That's obviously helped his team run better, but there was a bit of a slump there where he wasn't doing very well. I think he's kind of coming back where he's running more up front in the top 10, in the top 15 more consistently for Ricky. So we have to continue to watch that as well. Chris Buescher, him and Brad Keselowski, and I talked about Brad Keselowski yesterday. Him and Brad Keselowski for the RFK team have been really fast all weekend long. They were fast today. Brad Keselowski was in the top 5 for a majority of the day, got caught up in an accident, had just a really bad day for Brad Keselowski, had nothing to show for after a really showing a lot of speed, a really strong race car. Same thing for Chris Buescher, was up front. I believe Chris Buescher won one of the stages. It was 2 or 3. Chris Buescher won then got shuffled back in the mid-pack, and just wasn't able to come back up, at least for a shot to win the race, but a solid 8th place finish by Chris Buescher in the 17 car. A lot of speed out of that team. I do expect at least one of them, if not both of them, to get to victory lane at some point this season. Austin Dillon, one of those cars that came to life at the end of the race, didn't see him at all up front at the end of the race, or at the beginning of the race whatsoever. I mean, was outside the top 20, came up, got a solid top 10 finish, and then Zane Smith in the 38 car on a strategy call at the end of the race was actually able to hold off in that 38 car and finish inside the top 10. Didn't expect him to be able to hold on in the old tires, but was able to do so for enough time to come down pit road, then get tires, and then you saw a bunch of crazy stuff happen, but he was able to finish in the top 10, so a pretty solid run there for Zane Smith on a part-time schedule to take that 38 car into the top 10 for sure. Let's take a look at the point standings, because this was the start of the second half of the regular season. This is race 14 of 26 of the regular season. You see Brad Keselowski safely in after a rough day today, 102 points in. His teammate Chris Buescher still side by side. Buescher had a decent day. Gains above the cut line. Both of those guys now farther above the cut line. Chris Buescher 76 points above. Bubba Wallace with another decent run, 35 points above. I believe it was 15 last week. So Wallace obviously striving to stay above that cut line. And once again, you could always get a guy like Chase Elliott, or when we go to Daytona or go to a road course or have some type of, maybe a fluky situation where that cut line could move up one. So I think you definitely want to be 15th at least right now if you want to make the playoffs for Wallace, if he's not the winner, that is. And Alex Bowman as well, who's obviously, once again, this is his first race back after missing the last 3 weeks. 4 points above the cut line now. Chase Briscoe had an awful day today. Didn't even know he was in the race. He is -4 now. Ty Gibbs, who was running 7th for, like I said, the whole day. Like I talked about him earlier, was running 7th all day long. Shuffles back to 15th. Really frustrating there. Daniel Suarez didn't have the best day either. Didn't hear much of anything from the Trackhouse cars. Chastain was really slow, which is unusual. Usually he's been pretty fast, consistent everywhere over this entire season until today. But didn't see much out of Suarez or the Trackhouse team. He's -20, and Corey LaJoie is actually having a pretty good season right now. I know he's 20th in points, but he's only 38 below the cut line. Not too bad for Corey LaJoie, who I think a couple of years ago he would never even be on this list right now. So definitely want to continue to watch him, see if he can make something happen. Maybe try to find a way to get up there at some of these races coming up in the summer portion of the schedule. So that's really all there's to talk about. We do go to St. Louis next week Gateway for the racetrack. I think it's a 1-mile racetrack, a fairly flat racetrack, not a whole lot of banking, so I'm not entirely sure who that would favor. Obviously, you want to watch those Hendrick guys. They're fast everywhere right now. Want to watch Christopher Bell. He's pretty fast everywhere right now as well. So definitely should be exciting next week in St. Louis, and of course, tune into Dirty Air following that race in St. Louis. But that's it. That's all there's to talk about, and about Kyle Busch finishing 6th tonight after 600 miles. Let's get rowdy.